We're following breaking news from the NFL where Jonathan Taylor has just gotten paid. The All-Pro running back has agreed to a 3-year, $42 million extension with the Colts. According to reports, $26.5 million of that is guaranteed. It's been confirmed by our Josina Anderson. The deal is going to make Taylor the third highest paid running back in the league by average annual value, trailing only Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara. Now, Taylor is expected to make his season debut on Sunday against the Titans after missing Indy's first 4 games with an ankle injury. Speaking of our NFL insider, Josina Anderson, let's bring her in now for more on Jonathan Taylor's extension. Josina, your reaction to this news?
Well, it doesn't surprise me because I guess I can say this now. I was talking to Jonathan Taylor's agent maybe a couple of days ago, and he was talking about how he wanted to just, focus on some things as he tried to get some things done. So obviously didn't necessarily know if that was still, pushing for a trade as getting, closer to the fact that he was cleared, and what was the team going to do as far as using him or not using him, particularly if a running back like himself is a trade asset. And so obviously now we know what that was as far as working on the contract today to get him, a 3-year extension with $42 million and $26.5 guaranteed. And that average gives him a number of $14 million, which at the APY list, when you're looking at the ranking, that has him below Christian McCaffrey, that's at 16, and Alvin Kamara, who's at 15 on that APY. But pending as to when we look at the structure or have a chance to review the actual mechanics of the deal, he may actually, in fact, and this being Jonathan Taylor, be second on that APY list, just because when you're looking at Alvin Kamara's deal and how that was structured, the back end of it is not likely to be earned. So in the business, when they're kind of evaluating contracts, they don't necessarily look at that as a real APY over the entire term of the contract. But we knew that this was possible and feasible because back in August, I had reported when there were 2 teams that were interested in Jonathan Taylor as he was going through his motions with the Colts trying to, potentially get out of there. I had heard that the Packers and Dolphins were both willing to give him a contract that put him among the highest paid running backs. And at the time, a lot of people didn't necessarily lean into that and believe that because we were in the context of Saquon getting an amplified 1-year deal that had him at 10.1 with the ability to make up to 11. And the same thing with Jonathan in the 12 range as far as their amplified 1-year deals, and it looking like it was going to be harder to get back into averages closer to what we had seen before this lull in the running back market. But in fact, his agent was able to get a deal that secured him with an APY that puts him on that higher top shelf. And it makes sense because when they allowed him to test the market and gave him permission to do that, the market bore and showed that they were willing to do that. So it now makes it harder for the Colts to try to say, oh, we can't give you a deal worth this when 2 other teams are willing to do that. And so if you're trying to make Jonathan happy, bring him back in the fold, and I think the Colts feel a sense of optimism. Though they're 2-2, the 2 games that they've lost with Anthony Richardson at the helm have been pretty competitive, and obviously they have 2 wins with Gardner Minshew, starting for them or what have you, or at least coming in, for a measure. I still feel like this team senses that they still have an opportunity, and so it makes sense to get your best players back in the fold and on the field.
Yeah, if they're 4-0 or 3-1, maybe this is a different situation, maybe not. But Josina, how did we get here? Because 3 weeks ago, as you mentioned, Jonathan Taylor is a guy who's seeking a trade and looking to go elsewhere. Now he signs a 3-year extension tied through 2026. How did we get to this point?
Well, back around that time, again, when things kind of had cooled down a little bit, one of the things that I was hearing behind the scenes is Jonathan Taylor's camp's main focus was to get him past, getting cleared and physically showing that he was able, realizing that not only the importance of that for the Colts, but also the importance of that for potentially other teams. So that was, the focus. And they felt very confident that within even 2 weeks of those talks kind of cooling down, that he was going to be able to clear, the physical with that. And then, as I was saying a couple of days ago when I was speaking to Taylor's agent, and they were mentioning that they just wanted to kind of hunker down and focus on getting something done. I think behind the scenes, as they were kind of evaluating the situation and still trying to get a long-term deal. And remember, Chris Ballard had said, as I kind of interrupt myself there, that he wasn't going to just give Jonathan Taylor away. Part of the reason why the trade didn't happen is because he felt like the value of what the Packers and the Dolphins were offering wasn't enough. So Chris Ballard probably was still trying to make it work because, you know, the best thing to do to win is to have your best players out there. And even if he were to get some draft picks, that's not necessarily something that's going to make them better right now when they're sort of in that surf of feeling like they could still do something and be competitive this season. And ultimately, the owner is not only just watching the wins, but they're watching how many, you know, fans have their fannies in the seat. So you still got to conduct a business and have people be interested in the team, which is somewhat even what the Commanders are going through, as we were talking about them the other day as well, in terms of fielding, you know, a competitive squad and things like that. So there's always all sorts of considerations when you're considering macro and micro business.
Josina, before we came on, you know, I had a bunch of fantasy managers that I know, owners, who are very happy to hear about Jonathan Taylor signing the extension. Obviously happy that he's going to be back, removed from the PUP list this morning before the extension was announced. But you were saying maybe exercise some caution here. So what are your expectations for maybe Taylor's usage in these first couple weeks as he comes back? Because he didn't participate in the offseason program. It hasn't been terrible with Zach Moss in there. So what are your expectations for Taylor as we get him into this NFL season?
Well, I don't have a certainty as to exactly what they're going to do, but as someone who has covered the NFL for 20 years, I do think that it makes sense that even if he is fully available, to exercise caution with his utilization, because no matter how in shape you are trying to get yourself together in your off-season training and while you're going through some sort of contractual, fight or debate, with the team, none of that is going to match the max efforts that you are showing somewhat in practice and all the way to a game. You just cannot match the physicality that you not only have to encounter running the ball, but the contact that you endure. So if they, in fact, not only make him active, but actually, put him out on the field, I would expect to see some sort of, cautionary pitch count if they do that. And for Jonathan Taylor to be giving, the coaching staff and the athletic trainers feedback as to how he's feeling with regards to just, potentially in real time modifying that pitch count. Again, this is breaking news right now. I haven't had a chance to, fully delve in on that side of it, and we can have more information later. But if they do intend to go that route, it would make sense for them to do that. Does it make sense for them to give him this big extension and to, bring him back in the fold just for him to go in there and have a soft tissue injury and then have to go back on the IR report?
Well, Colts fans at least are going to be happy to have him back, no matter how much he plays. They've got him signed for the next 3 seasons. Our NFL insider Josina Anderson talking to us about the breaking news: Jonathan Taylor signing a $42 million extension with the Indianapolis Colts.